Hello and welcome. Today I'm going to be talking about how to name covalent compounds in chemistry. So first I'm going to go through the prefixes used in this system of naming. Then we're going to go through the steps to name the compounds. And then I'm going to do some practice problems. And then I will give you some problems to practice on your own and check your progress on this topic. Alright, and for this last section, feel free to answer in the comments. Now a note here is that the periodic table is provided in the description. Here are the prefixes, alright, and these are used when we name covalent compounds. These are going to be the first part of the name, so we're going to put these before the element's name, and each prefix corresponds to a certain number. For example, mono is for 1, di is for 2, tri is for 3, tetra is for 4, penta is for 5, hexa is for 6, hepta is for 7, octa is for 8, nona is for 9, and deca is for 10. So keep these in mind as we go through this video. Now, what are covalent compounds? Well, in chemistry, they're going to be the ones that are made up of nonmetals. Okay, so you're going to have two nonmetals, they're going to be bonded together, and they're going to be covalent compounds. Alright, and covalent compounds, just be aware, are also called molecular compounds. They both mean essentially the same thing, that both are made of nonmetals only. Now we're going to start with NCl3, and we want to name this. So let's follow these steps on the left, and number 1 says we need to identify the elements. We have N and we have Cl. N is for nitrogen and Cl is for chlorine. Number 2 says that we need to take into account the number of atoms of element, essentially asking how many nitrogen atoms are there? There's 1, so we'll put a little 1. And how many chlorine atoms are there? Well, this subscript here tells us that there are 3 chlorine atoms. So we'll put a note there. Next, we're going to name this compound using this sort of formula. So this says we're going to use the prefix indicating the number of the first element. So the prefix for the number of nitrogen atoms. And then we're going to have the first element's name. So just as a note, nitrogen is the first element because it comes first in our chemical formula. Then chlorine will be the second element. So let's start writing this. So there is 1 nitrogen. However, the rules say that we will not use mono for the first element. So in this case, we can disregard this. We can only use di, tri, and so on for the first element's prefix. We do not use mono for the first element. So we're just going to put the nitrogen, and then we're going to have the prefix of the second element, and then we're going to do the base name of the second element with the ending IDE. So let's do the prefix first. So we said there are 3 chlorine atoms, which corresponds to tri, and we know that the base name of chlorine is just going to be chlor, and we're going to put the ending IDE. IDE. So I'll just color code this. This is the prefix here, and then we have the base name, which I'll do in green. So for the second element, you have 3 parts. You have the prefix, you have the base name, and you have the ending of IDE. So we know that NCl3 is called nitrogen trichloride. Let's do another example and give the name for HF. So what are the elements here? H is hydrogen and F is fluorine. Alright, number of atoms of the elements. So we have 1 hydrogen and we have 1 fluorine. And now we're going to name it using the rules here. So there's 1 hydrogen, meaning we cannot use mono because it comes first. First element, second element here. Right, so we have 1 of the first, but we cannot use mono, so this part is eliminated. So we'll have this part, the name of the first element, which is hydrogen. Then we'll have the second part, which says prefix. Alright, so the prefix for fluorine is going to be mono because there's 1 fluorine atom. So mono. And then base name of the second element with the ending IDE. So we're going to have fluoride. Okay, so fluor is going to be the base name for fluorine, and IDE is going to be the ending. So HF is called hydrogen monofluoride. You might also see this as hydrogen fluoride because it is assumed that there is 1 because H has a +1 charge and fluorine has a -1 charge. So they might cut out this part as well. Now let's do another example. So here we have CO2, right? And we're going to identify the elements. So C is for carbon, and we only have 1 of those. And then we have oxygen, and we have 2 oxygens. Now we're going to name it. And so the prefix for the first element is just going to be ignored because it would be mono, which we're not allowed to put mono for the first element. So we're just going to write carbon. Okay, we're just going to follow this sequence here. And then we're going to use the prefix of the second element. So that's going to be the prefix for 2, which we know is di. And then we're going to write this part, the base name of oxygen, with the ending IDE, which we know is oxide. So CO2 is called carbon dioxide. All right, so let's do another example. So here we have P2O5. All right, and our first step is to identify the elements. So P is for phosphorus, all right, and O is for oxygen. Now we're going to find the number of atoms of the elements. So we have 2 phosphorus atoms, and we have 5 oxygen atoms. All right, and then we're going to follow this kind of formula to name it. So we have the prefix of the first element. So the first element is phosphorus, and it has 2 atoms. So we're going to use the prefix di. And then we have the first element's name, so di, and we'll put phosphorus. All right, and then we have the prefix of the second element, which is oxygen. So the prefix for 5 is penta. And then we have the base name of the second element plus the ending of IDE. So we get oxide. Now you'll notice that we have 2 vowels here, and usually what they do is just cut out this A, okay? So then it becomes pentoxide. Alright, so for the name of P2O5, we have diphosphorus pentoxide. Now it's time for you to check your progress on this topic. Alright, and feel free to respond in the comments. Okay, so your job is to name compound 1 and name compound 2. Thank you so much for watching this video, and I will see you next time.